Okay, so are you ready for this? Today, we are diving deep into something most people don't really think about too much: workplace romance.
Yeah, it's actually way more common than people think. Studies show tons of people have either been in one or at least seen one happen.
And that brings up so many questions. Like, how do these relationships even start? And what kind of impact do they have on our jobs?
Right, good questions.
Well, we found this really interesting research study from 2003.
Okay.
It was published in the Management Research Journal
Mm-hmm.
by Charles A. Pierce and Herman Aguinas.
Aquinas?
Yeah, pronounce it like a Guinness, like the beer.
Oh, like the beer. Got it.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
interesting choice for this deep dive.
Yeah, right?
It is. This research is really relevant. I mean, workplace romances have been linked to some pretty serious issues in organizations.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like sexual harassment claims, for example.
Oh, wait. Sexual harassment.
Yeah.
That's serious.
Yeah.
That definitely makes things more complicated than just a little office flirtation.
Right. It's important to remember that while some workplace romances can turn into good relationships, others can be risky,
Ah.
especially if you don't think about things like power dynamics and professional boundaries.
Yeah, I can see that.
Even if it's consensual, people might still see it as favoritism, which could lead to complaints.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's the whole mess of what happens if they break up. It can create a hostile environment for everyone.
So not always a happy ending?
Definitely not always.
Okay, so back to this study. What were the researchers actually trying to figure out?
Well, they had two main goals. One was to find out what makes someone more likely to start a workplace romance.
Okay.
And two, they wanted to understand how these romances affect the people involved in their work lives.
Okay, makes sense. So did they just ask a few people around their office? Or was it like a real study with data and stuff?
Oh, no, this is a legit study. They surveyed over 465 employees from all kinds of industries and job levels, so it gives us a pretty good picture of what's happening in the working world.
Wow, okay, that's impressive. So what did they learn about what makes people more likely to get romantically involved at work?
Well, two big things stood out. The first one wasn't that surprising. People who had a positive attitude towards workplace romance were more likely to get involved.
Yeah, that seems pretty obvious.
Uh,
What about the second factor?
This one's a bit more interesting. The study found that employees who had more job autonomy, meaning they had more freedom and decision-making power, were also more likely to start workplace romances.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
It's like if you have more control over your schedule, you talk to your colleagues more freely, and you work together on projects, it just creates more chances to connect.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're saying that like a factory job where everything's really structured and there's not much interaction would be less likely to have romances compared to, say, a creative agency where people have more flexibility and collaboration.
Exactly. It's all about opportunity and having a less rigid environment.
That's interesting. So now I'm wondering, does having a crush on a coworker affect how well you do your job?
Right. Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The study actually found that being in a workplace romance wasn't really linked to job performance.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. So having a romantic relationship with a coworker didn't necessarily make people better or worse at their jobs.
That's what they found.
Wow, that's surprising. I would have thought there would be some kind of impact, positive or negative.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
It's a good question, and there are a few possible reasons.
Okay.
Some researchers believe that people in workplace romances might actually work harder to make sure others don't think badly of them. Like they want to show they're professional and dedicated, so they go the extra mile.
Right. So they're trying to keep things quiet and prove their personal life isn't interfering with their work. But isn't that kind of tiring? Could it lead to burnout in the long run?
That's a good point. Another theory is that all the excitement and energy from the relationship spills over into their work life, making them more motivated and focused.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's an interesting dynamic.
Definitely. So we've got these potential downsides, but then maybe some positives too.
Yeah, it's complicated for sure.
This is fascinating. I had no idea there was so much to think about when it comes to workplace romance.
Me neither. It's a whole world unto itself.
So what else did this study find?
Let's get into that. Yeah, it really is. How our relationships affect our energy at work is fascinating.
For sure. And speaking of dynamics, this study was done way back in 2003. Things have changed so much in the workplace since then.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like, think about remote work and flexible schedules and social media.
Yeah,
How do you think all that impacts things?
you're right. That's a really good point. The lines between work and personal life are so blurred now.
Right.
We're always connected, checking emails after hours, taking Zoom calls from our living rooms.
Yeah.
It creates way more opportunities to connect with colleagues, even when we're not in the same physical office.
Like you might not even be in the same city as your coworker who you're now dating.
Exactly.
Long-distance relationships, virtual dates, it's a whole new world.
It really is. And then there's social media. We see so much more of our colleagues' personal lives. Now, their hobbies, their interests.
That's true.
So it's easier to feel like you know them, even if you haven't actually spent much time with them in person.
Yeah, you might see your coworkers' amazing vacation photos on Instagram or realize you both love the same obscure band.
Exactly. Social media is almost like a matchmaker these days.
Uh-huh. Yeah, kind of.
Wow.
It breaks down those barriers and opens up new ways to connect. But I guess some things about workplace romance stay the same no matter what, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Power dynamics, professional boundaries, the potential for conflicts of interest, those are still super important.
Right. Good point. It seemed like it's harder than ever to find that balance between personal happiness and professional responsibility.
For sure.
So I'm curious, what did the study say about the impact of workplace romances on things like job satisfaction and commitment to the company?
Okay, so they actually found a positive link between being in a workplace romance and job satisfaction.
Correct.
Yeah, which suggests that people in these relationships tend to be happier at work overall.
Interesting. So does that mean companies should start encouraging office romances as a way to boost morale?
Hold on. It's tempting to think that. But we have to remember that just because two things are related doesn't mean one causes the other.
Okay.
Just because people in workplace romances say they're happier at work doesn't mean it's the romance that's making them happy.
Right.
There could be other things going on, like maybe they just have a more positive personality, or they're happy in their life overall, or they have a really supportive work environment.
That's a good point. We can't assume it's a direct cause and effect just because two things seem connected.
Exactly. But there's another finding from the study that's worth mentioning. They found a slight positive correlation between workplace romance and organizational commitment.
Okay, meaning what?
So it seems like employees who are in these relationships might be more likely to stay with the company.
Huh. That's interesting. Why do you think that is? Is it because they feel more connected to the company through their partner? Or is there something else going on?
There are a couple of possibilities. One theory is that they're more motivated to stay with the company so they don't mess up their relationship.
Okay.
Another possibility is that they're making an effort to show everyone how dedicated and loyal they are to kind of counteract any negative perceptions about their relationship.
So it's like they want to prove that their personal life isn't getting in the way of their work.
Exactly. They want to show they're taking their responsibilities seriously and not letting the relationship affect their work.
This is making me think about all the different sides of office romance. It's not just about sneaking glances and secret dates.
No, it's not.
It's about finding a balance between your feelings, your professional responsibilities, and the dynamics of the workplace.
It really is. And there's still so much to unpack, especially when it comes to what happens when things go wrong.
Oh yeah, that's the big question. What are some of the challenges and risks of workplace romances? And how can companies create a work environment that supports healthy relationships, but also minimizes potential problems?
Those are great questions. And those are exactly what we'll be getting into next.
Okay, so stay tuned. We're going to keep diving into this fascinating world of workplace romance. All right, so we're back, and we've been talking all about workplace romance, the good, the bad, and the complicated. But let's face it, sometimes things just don't work out. What happens then?
Right. Well, that's when things can get really tricky. One big worry is conflicts of interest. You know, when your personal feelings start affecting your professional decisions,
Oh, yeah,
that can be a recipe for disaster.
I can imagine. Like if you have to give your partner a performance review.
Exactly. Or even worse, if you have to make a decision that could affect their career.
Oof, that would be so awkward.
Mm.
Even if you both try to be fair, other people might still think you're playing favorites.
Exactly. Perception is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And even if there's no real bias, just the appearance of it can really hurt team dynamics and morale.
For sure. And then what happens when the romance ends? Breakups are hard enough as it is, but at work it can get really messy.
Absolutely. It's not easy to just move on when you have to see your ex every day at work.
Right, all those awkward run-ins and lingering feelings and maybe even some drama. It could make the whole workplace toxic.
Definitely. So the question is, how can companies create a work environment that allows for healthy relationships, but also minimizes these potential problems?
That's the big question. Should companies just ban workplace romances altogether? Or is there a way to manage them effectively?
Well, outright bans don't usually work, and they can feel kind of controlling.
Yeah.
A better approach is to have clear communication and transparent policies.
Right.
Like companies should spell out what they expect in terms of professional conduct, what happens if a relationship does develop, and how they'll handle potential conflicts of interest.
So it's not about forbidding romance. It's more about setting some ground rules to make sure things stay professional and everyone's treated fairly.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between respecting employees' personal lives and protecting the company.
Right. Makes sense.
Hmm.
And beyond policies, I guess it's also important to create a culture of open communication and respect.
Absolutely. Employees need to feel like they can talk to their manager or HR about these issues without being judged or punished.
Yeah, that's so important.
Yeah.
Having those open conversations can prevent misunderstandings and help resolve things before they get out of hand. But what happens if, despite all that, things still go wrong? How should companies handle those situations?
Well, in those cases, it's crucial to have clear procedures for dealing with complaints, mediating conflicts, and providing support to everyone involved.
Okay.
That might mean things like conflict resolution, training employee assistance programs, or even transfers or reassignments necessary to reduce tension and keep the workplace healthy.
Wow, this has really made me think about all the complexities of workplace romance. It's definitely not as simple as it seems.
No, it's not.
It's about navigating a tricky balance of emotions, professional responsibilities, and organizational dynamic.
It really is. But here's one last question for you and our listeners. If job satisfaction is really linked to workplace romance, could companies create environments that foster genuine connection and happiness among employees without necessarily leading to romance?
That's an interesting thought.
What if they focused on building strong teams and fostering a sense of belonging and creating opportunities for meaningful interaction regardless of romantic interest?
That's a great point. Maybe the key is to create a workplace where people feel valued and respected and part of a supportive community, whether or not they find love there. This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's clear that workplace dynamics are constantly changing, and understanding the nuances of relationships, both personal and professional, is crucial for creating a thriving and respectful work environment. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.